Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hope. My name is Tammy Lynn Connors. This is my YouTube channel and podcast, helping other people evolve. My mission and vision with Hope is just to let people know that they don't struggle all by themselves. I have amazing stories on here of so many people's lives that unfortunately have been through struggles, but fortunately have gotten to a strength and been able to live life a little different after their struggle. Today's episode is a Tammy Lynn Connors episode. I'm not interviewing anybody. I always tell people I myself have been through struggles, and how to navigate through them is life's journey. And I keep learning and learning. So recently, I'm sitting here right now thinking the last time I did a podcast was March 25th, I think was the day. It was Joe Summers. March, April, May, June, almost 4 months. So have I procrastinated through some of it? Absolutely. Am I working on procrastination? Every day? It's one of my vices, if you want to call it that. I've been so busy, and I just wanted to share a little bit of, for one thing, how fast life goes, how quick 4 months has gone. I did want to share a little bit of what happened a little bit after March, and kind of where I went on that spiral of not being on here, but I'm back, and I have a great story of hope coming next week. I just read his book. It's going to be amazing. But today, let's focus on what I wanted to talk about. So, coming into March, the end of March, busy, April busy, had a mastermind I was going to in Cancun right around April 18th to the 21st, I think it was. Came right home, dog sat for my son Chad. He was out of town working. And then April 25th, I guess it would have been, was the NFL draft up in Detroit. We live near Detroit, like 45 minutes away. So my son and his sister and her husband and a couple other friends rented an Airbnb, and they went up for the NFL draft. So they went up there on a Thursday morning. I got a message from Chad that Thursday morning and said, "Hey, Mom, we're at the Airbnb. It's a little bit dirty, but we'll be okay." Little did he know what those words were going to say. Mean. Whoa, phew. I'm going to try not to get too emotional. But if you know me, you know I do. And so, anyways, Thursday night, whatever, I'm dog sitting for him still. And Friday evening, he calls me, and I can tell he's just in a mood. Sometimes your kids get in a mood, and sometimes they want to talk to you. And so he's telling me, what he's going through and stuff, and I'm talking to him through it. And he said, "Oh, by the way, Mom, I'm probably going to come home tomorrow with a black eye." And I was like, "Oh." He's like, "Yeah, I face planted last night." He's like, "I missed a step and I fell on the floor." And I was like, "Great job, Chad," right? I'm like, "Good job." A little wound from the NFL draft, right? So Saturday morning, I'm at work, and I get to my phone because I turn my phone on do not disturb, and I get there, and I got text messages from his sister and from him, and I look at this picture, and his eye. So the cut on his eye was probably, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see, but I'm touching my right eyelid, and it was just a little cut, and it was about the size of a prong of a fork. That was it. That was the size of this little cut. He sends me a picture on Saturday morning, and his eye is swollen shut. You can see a big gash there. And he's like, he was puking all night long. He's like, "They're going to take me to Henry Ford Hospital here in Detroit and drop me off at the emergency room." And his sister had her son's baseball game about an hour and a half away that she had to go to. And I was like, "That's fine. I'll pick you up. I know they're not going to get you in and out like within 20 minutes." So I'm working, and he messages me. It's just like, "Take your time. I'm still here. They're just looking at me." I said, "Okay, I'll be there in a while." And I'm going to be honest, I was a little lackadaisical about going up there. I was like, "You dummy, you fell, right? And cut yourself." It looked like he had what do I call it? Cellulitis, right? I think that's what you call it. Anyway, I think that's what he had. An infection in his eye, in his eyelid. So long story short, I started heading up there, and he calls me, and he's like, "Hey, they're gonna keep me overnight for observation." I'm like, "Okay, I'll be there in just a little bit." Get up there, almost to the hospital, and he calls me, and he says, "Hey, Mom, they're gonna put me in ICU for a few days to keep an eye on me." And I'm like, "Okay, ICU. I mean, I saw your face and what it looked like this morning." I'm going to tell you what, they get him in ICU. Now, at this point, I have a few people praying for him, right? Like, hey, Chad's got an infection in his eye, lift up some prayers, not very many. I walk into the ICU room. They're just getting him in there, they're getting him all situated. And if I would have not known that was my son laying there, I would have told you that was not my son laying there. His eye looked like it had a baseball in it. I didn't know I was gonna get this emotional. His whole side of his face was swollen, his throat was swollen, his white blood count was high. Um, he just looked a mess. And so we're in there. They got, they put the marker around his eye to watch the infection if it's moving or not. Now at this point, I said to him, I'm like, Chad, I got some people praying for you. He's like, yeah, I figured you would, Mom. Thanks. And then he kind of said something smart. I remember what he said. I said, hey, at least I didn't throw your picture on Facebook the way you're looking right now, right? Kind of joking with him, which he kept a great attitude through all this. Um, Probably about 2 hours later, I'm standing outside in the waiting area. They're, doing stuff with him. And I'm talking to my friend Cynthia on the phone, who's a nurse, kind of telling her what's going on. And this cute little nurse, she was just adorable, came out to me and she's like, hey, Tammy. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, we need you to go in there and talk to Chad before he goes to surgery. And I'm like, surgery? Like, what is going on right now? He had a little cut on his eye. She said, no. I always say sorry for this to this girl because she probably didn't know I even did this, but it hurts my heart that I did. I kind of looked at her like, okay. And then she said, no, seriously, Tammy, this is life or death surgery. And I kind of looked at her like, okay, little drama queen, let's be real here. Let's not tell the mom it's life or death, right? I've already lost one son. I don't need to lose another one and a bonus son on top of it. And so anyways, I get in the room and there's the plastic surgeons who's the ones that did his surgery and the anesthesiologist. And they look at me and they're like, we have to take him now. This is life or death. And he could lose his eye. I'm like, what is happening right now? So they have him down, prepped, ready to go within a half hour. They get him down there. Now, I'm reaching out to everybody I know for prayers. I get on Facebook Live, like, hey, this is happening. And it was such a whirlwind. It was like sitting in a movie, like, what is going on in my life right now? What is happening to my poor child from one little cut on his eye? He was in surgery about an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours. They put drain tubes in his eye. If you can see what I'm doing on YouTube, if not, then my podcast. I had on right by the bridge of his nose, they put a tube right on his eyelid, on the side of his eye, and down on his cheekbone. They put 4 drain tubes in to drain the infection out. At this point, he's sepsis. So the plastic surgeon comes out and he says, are you Chad's mom? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I just want you to know the surgery went very well. So many blessings. He didn't have any dead cells, which was huge. They were able to get the drainage going, so they were able to start getting that infection out. Also, they said that the infection was millimeters from his bone, which would have been a whole different, ball game, his eye socket. It didn't look like there was any optic nerve damage. So all of these bonuses are happening. He's like, but I do want to tell you that he's on a ventilator. And I'm like, what? He said his vocal cords and his esophagus are so swollen, we had to put him on a ventilator in order to keep him being able to breathe. I'm like, one little cut on his eye. And so now they're determining the bacteria. They have to do the cultures and stuff to treat it correctly, right? Right now they got him on antibiotics, but they're not really sure what they're treating. I should have looked up the exact name of this before I did this video, but I can't remember the exact name of it. But he ended up having a strep A flesh-eating bacteria. And I go to the room and I look at him, and of course he's not coherent at this time, but they didn't put him in an induced coma or anything like that. They basically just had him on the ventilator. Of course, he just had surgery, so he's still pretty doped up. So I talked to the nurse and I'm like, should I stay overnight? And he was like, he's like, it's up to you, Tammy, but basically he's going to sleep all night, because we got him, all the just medicine and things like that. He's on the ventilator. We're keeping him as comfortable as I can. And I'm like, okay, well, I really have to work tomorrow because I feel like this is going to be a long journey. People were praying, 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 praying. And I thank God for all the people that were praying. I actually thank God that I had to work the next day because that was a Sunday. And a lot of my regulars came in after church and they were praying too. This is what I talk about. Knowing your circle, having those good people in your life, having people that are going to be praying for you, having people that are lifting you up, having people that are there for you when you need them. Go back up in the hospital right now. He's vented, and he's vented for 2 days, 3 days. Saturday, well, really Saturday night, Sunday, Monday, finally came out Tuesday. Now he's up in Detroit. I live in Toledo. It's a 45-minute drive. Well, it was an hour drive to the hospital. Some days it was 2 hours, depending on traffic, right? But I was not going to not go see my son. One day I did not, and that's because I worked 2 jobs that day. But other than that, and he even told me at the end, he's like, Mom, you don't have to come see me every day. Finally, on Tuesday, he got off the ventilator. It's a whole nother story. I'm going to let Chad share his story about this. He can share what he went through being on that ventilator and his take on being in the hospital. I did tell him when I came to see him on Sunday, it was kind of a little, because I told him I didn't put any pictures on my Facebook. I said, oh, by the way, your sister put your pictures on Facebook. And he's just kind of shook his head. He's on the ventilator, can't say much, typing, right? And a couple of people messaged me and they said, we just saw the pictures. If somebody wasn't praying for Chad before, they need to be praying for him now. My kid was a mess. But there's a picture on there that right after his surgery, his whole side of his face is covered in, gauze and everything. And he's on a ventilator. And he must have did a Snapchat. And it said, life comes at you hard sometimes. And then at the bottom it said, but I'm feeling much better. If you saw the picture, you'd look at him like, what do you mean? And it's just the way that he approached this whole journey of being in the hospital. So I think it was on Wednesday. They took the ventilator off on Tuesday. Wednesday or maybe Thursday morning, they removed the drain tubes. He was doing really good, looking really good. We did a Flex Friday picture. He's smiling, I'm smiling, although he smiled most all the time through all this. And by Saturday, his eye was completely swollen again. His white blood count went up to like 26,000. Normal range is, I think, 4,000 to 8,000 or something like that. Might be, 4,000 to 8,000, something like that. If you want to Google that, go ahead. I forget. I did all this a few months ago. Anyways, it shot back up again. His eye swelled up again. They put dots around it again. Didn't know really what was going on, but he became sick again, infected again. They went in on that Monday. They did surgery again. It might have been on Sunday. I don't know, but it was all such a whirlwind. But they did surgery again, put drain tubes in again. Looking good. White blood counts going down. Then it starts going up again. And then he got what they call a hematoma inside. Now he's bleeding profusely. Can't get it to stop. Going and do emergency surgery again to cauterize that, find where the bleeding was coming from. And when I say that he kept his attitude so good through all this, when he was going in for that last surgery, now mind you, he's been in the hospital for, he was in ICU for 12 days, in the hospital for 15 days. So he's going into this last surgery and he looks a mess, you guys. I'm not even kidding you. He looked a mess the whole time, but now you can see his whole eye. And on the bottom right cheek, the whole thing was nothing but black with, it looked horrible. If you want to see pictures, you just let me know and I can send them to you. But through that, he's laying there and he's getting ready to go to surgery to get this cauterized so he can figure out where this bleeding's come from. And the anesthesiologist is talking to him. He says, damn, Chad, he's like, you look like you were in Rocky 1. And Chad's like, yeah, man, I didn't know he had a left like that. I only thought he had a right. And we're laughing, right? And I'm just looking at him like, that's my kid. And then the doctor was like, Well, the other guy was in here last night. You should have seen him, Chad. Chad's like, yeah, I know. I threw hands all over him, and I'm laughing. And the anesthesiologist looked at him and he said, you know what? We are so happy that you've kept your humor through all this, and please don't ever lose that humor. Chad said, I think it made me more humorous. When I say what you teach people around you, what your kids learn from you, my kid has learned how to be a very strong man. Probably because he had a very strong mom that taught him, don't play victim. You're not a victim. Life has happened. We've been through it. He will be on my podcast one day. We've both been through it, but watching him through this 15 days of hell, he was strong. He was positive. He was grateful. He was thankful. He was all the things that I try to help people do, that I try to express to others. Being joyful, being grateful. You know, you say things like, I got to go to work. How about I get to go to work? Or how about I got to get gas? I get to get gas. I have a vehicle I get to drive. I have a roof over my head. I have to pay my bills. I get to pay my bills because why? I have bills to pay. Why? Because I'm blessed to have these things, right? And I believe that the years of me talking about things like this in the last few years, not always, Chad's really learned a lot about that. I never played a victim in life. Not me. I don't play victim. Life has happened. Life is hard. Life's hard for everybody. I wouldn't be the person I am today if I wouldn't have went through all the struggles I've been through. And that means a lot. Chad finally got out of the hospital. Now he can't work, right? He still had the drain tubes in. He had those in for a total of, I believe, from the day of the accident, he finally got the last drain tube out 7 weeks in and was able to finally go back to work. So he was off work basically for 8 weeks, 2 months straight. When I say that the blessings of me being able to work and be an entrepreneur showed full force there, the glory of God showed full force for me there. Whatever it is that you believe, I always say that, whatever it is, I believe God. He has walked me through this journey. He has carried me through this journey. He continues to bless me through this journey. I've been able to help my son pay his bills. He's working again. We have a really good friend of ours that he's working with because his job's kind of slow right now. So just all the things that have transpired. So that's what happened in April. Where May, June went and part of July, I have no idea. I've been just busy trying to wrap my head still around that I almost lost my son in April. Trying to focus on hope, trying to get the things done that I need to get done for hope. I did do a live hope. It was called the Night of Hope that I like to do. And I interviewed 4 moms who have all 4 lost their sons to gun violence. Only 3, well, 1 murder has been solved. 3 are still unsolved murders. So we did an event for them and raised some money and in hopes to help them with their journey and their nonprofits. But getting back on track with hope is where I'm at today. And I'm sitting here saying to you, man, life goes quick and life comes at you hard. Don't forget that. And we will go through struggles and we will have to figure out how to get through things. And that's why I think it is so important to work on yourself. This is a journey, and the journey of life is your life. You know, at the point of Chad, one thing he said to me, which is something that I was surprised that happened to him when he was 18, that he did, is I've always said the serenity prayer. I think it's a very important prayer. I learned it in the AA rooms with his father. I've learned it in AA myself, and I've learned it in life. I don't think it has to be anything with addiction. It has to do with life in general. And I'm going to say it to you. So maybe you can hear it and maybe you've heard it before, maybe you haven't, but it's God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Chad had that tattooed on his back when he was 18 years old. My kid that was petrified of needles was like, I just got a tattoo in the middle of my back, the serenity prayer. And I was like, really? You afraid of needles, right? But anyways, he said to me, Mom, you don't know how many times I said the serenity prayer while I was in that hospital. I'm like, you don't know how many times I said it also. I have it tattooed on my leg for a reason. I'll never forget that prayer. And that's something that we need to know in life. Like there's things we can change, there's things we can't change. And we need to know the difference. We can't change people, and I had to learn that the hard way. But through all of my journey in life, I keep learning. I don't stop learning. I keep learning every day. And every day that I learn something, I put that over here in this little, whatever you want to call it, toolbox, whatever you want to call it, your mindset box, whatever you want to call it. And when life comes at me hard, or when life just comes at me, I have to know how to navigate through that. And using these tools is what helps me to navigate through that. Be like, oh yeah, I know that I can't control what is happening to Chad right now, but I can be there for him. I know I can't control what the doctors are doing right now, but I can pray for them. I know that the only thing I can do right now is show my son that I love him and tell him that people are praying for him and that we care about him. That's all I can do right now. When he gets home, I can help him. That's all I could do right then. And so I think that that's important, that we learn what we can control and what we can't, what we can change and what we can't. And what we know we can and can't is the wisdom to know the difference. It's huge, you guys. Knowing what we can do is huge. Now, I know that this might have been, I don't know, it was a long journey with Chad. It's still a journey. His eye's still swollen. People look at him now that didn't know what happened to him are like, man, dude, what happened to your eye? People that have seen what happened in the beginning are looking at him like, oh my God, you look so good. And we were praying so hard for you. And he is grateful for every single person that says that to him. I want to add a little something that happened to him too, and we'll talk about it when I interview him. But he was at a restaurant and he didn't look the greatest, but he still got to go live life, right? And when I talk about being kind to people, and thankfully he's strong in his self, because a waitress looked at him and said, "What happened to you?" And he was like, "Oh, well, I, just survived a flesh-eating bacteria." And she said, "If I looked like that, I wouldn't come out of my house." Now, thankfully, my son is strong in his self-worth, because that could have knocked somebody right down. And I think about that when I talk about being kind to people. It's part of our tools, right? Maybe we want to say something to somebody. I'm not going to lie. I say a lot of things under my breath when I'm driving in my car to people. It's probably my biggest frustration and probably one of the biggest things I need to work on, because I know I can't change it. But anyways, it's just being kind to people. And I don't know why I had to throw that in there, but somebody might have needed to hear that today. If somebody's saying things to you that are negative and mean, that's them. Remember that. That's something on them, not on you. Don't let it fail you. Don't let it make you feel any less than what you are. Okay, I think I'm done babbling. I just wanted to get on here, you guys. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I got a great story coming up next week. I cannot wait for you guys to hear Rory's story. It's incredible. His book's incredible. We'll talk about the book. We'll talk about his life. His name of his book is I should have been dead, I think it's called. And listening to his book, yeah, he should have been. But you know what? By the grace of God, he's still here. And that's because he's here to share his story to help other people. And that's exactly what we do with Hope. So once again, thank you so much for tuning into Hope. I hope you all have an amazing day, week, month, life, all of it. Remember, we make the choices in our day. Make good choices. Be grateful. Wake up, be grateful for at least 1, 2, 3, maybe 10 things in the morning. But if you can't think of 10, then think of 3. If you can't think of 3, then think of 1, because at least you woke up. You guys all have an amazing day, and we will talk to you very, very soon.